All right. Hello, everyone. So I started later than I thought I would, but um, I think that I changed a bunch of the settings, and I think now this stream should be a lot smoother than last week's. And now I know I have to be vigilant for this new problem that happened last week where the audio just stops working, but OBS indicates that it was working, and I don't know. I guess I could listen back to the stream on another thing, but then it would echo, right? Like you'd have to, I don't know, whatever. OBS updated, so I had to change stuff, but it looks like we're good. Sounds like Ashley's there. How's it going? Oh, can you not hear me? Oh, I'm muted. I'm muted on the thing. My goodness. That just means only he can't hear me. Hey, you can hear me now, right? I've been talking, but I forgot I was muted on Discord.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, and you're probably too quiet, so let me just fix this.
Yeah,
oh no,
I was muted as well automatically, so I had to unmute.
This is a physical setting on. Yeah, I got my new headset, and I was really excited because I thought this means I'm gonna have a new microphone all in one, and the microphone doesn't fucking work. I don't know what the deal is. Nothing fucking works. Anyway.
Does it have... I mean, I don't even really understand the technical lingo associated with, like, peripheral devices, but have you installed all the drivers and everything correctly?
Yeah, and I tried to update them. Ashley audio is fine. Oh, that means my audio is not fine, right? By deduction. Thank God Paulo's here right when it starts. It's good to have a, like a triangulated perspective. That seems to be the pattern. That's right. I was actually just going to open it on mine so that I have it. Even if it's muted, I can just quickly unmute it, and that'll be a way for me to also check instead of relying so much on others. Open it on mine so that I have it, even if it's... Okay, so... Yeah, it's just, it's been like 2 years of, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but this year it's just been like the opposite, and it's been awful. Okay, so it looks like we're doing okay.
I mean, your sound quality seems pretty normal. The confounding variable is going to be your internet speed, I think.
Yeah, well, because I'm using my laptop's main microphone, which is, I guess it's fine. Yeah, but every time I type or touch stuff, it picks up all that crap.
Well, that's okay.
Yeah, let's see. But the one I was trying to use is the one that they gave me for my new work, but they bleed so horribly that it causes that awful, like, tiny little bit of an echo that creates that weird tinny effect. It's just, ugh. Well, I know you said you don't seem to mind that effect, but I think it's awful. And the AirPod did that too? Anyway. Well, I have one AirPod because I lost the other one.
Yeah.
But it's great. It's just
they're considered a bit of a status symbol by some people because it's like high tech or something.
Oh, actually, I'd call it an AirPod, right? But it's not like the Apple's AirPod. I don't know if that's technically their brand. I think they're all just called that though, regardless of the brand. I got like a cheap one. I love that you can buy them individually too. Like, there really is a market for people like me, or just like, why would I need two? Just need one.
You'll be able to get them cheap from Huawei or Xiaomi or something soon. One of those like knockoff Chinese companies.
Oh, well, I did buy one originally, and it was like a dirt cheap one, and within like a month, it just totally stopped holding a charge, and so that was kind of a waste of money.
Yeah.
But the one just slightly more expensive than that, well, they gave me two, but the thing is when you have two, it's not like having two is twice as good as having one. You know what I mean? Like you
Right.
get about 90% of the utility from one, and then two is just like a little bit better. So I'm all
Yeah.
for, like, monocles used to be a thing. I think monocles with like headsets should be a thing. Like I think oh, that's right. I remember at my old job, one of them, some of us were lucky. You could grab like a headset that was only on one ear, and then it would only go over like instead of half of your head, like a third of your head. So it's much more comfortable, especially if you wear glasses. To just have something lighter, because you don't need both ears. I don't think. I like the half set.
Yeah.
I should get one of those. And then you feel kind of like a cyborg too. That's like asymmetrical, so it feels like it's sci-fi. I don't know. That's to me that
Like
makes it
one-
science-y. If it's ooh, this is technology and it's asymmetrical, this must be from the future.
Yeah, because it looks like one side of your head's integrated into a computer. Whatever.
Yeah, or something like that. Or it's even just like anytime a design looks stupid, right? But if it's really like sure of itself, then you just assume, wow, some really smart person has some really awesome reason for doing it this way that I can't even comprehend. Like, isn't the future cool?
Yeah. Did you hear about the recent furore over here in Britain? Or, well, it isn't really a furore to most people, because most people don't care, but about Piers Morgan storming off Good Morning Britain because he called Meghan Markle a liar or something.
Well, wait, that's
And,
that happened a few weeks ago, or is it like ongoing drama?
Well, it's kind of like ongoing drama because his accusation is that she's a liar, right? And
Yeah.
that it's like he's writing about it in the press, like he has a whole article about what happened in some newspaper now, and it's being discussed again because it's coming to light apparently that some of the things that she's alleged actually are lies. So
Oh yeah, I mean that always seemed
Pretty
unsurprising. Yeah, like it seems just like a documented liar.
to be honest, I mean, I know this is all like fairly meaningless to Americans, but it's just like I kind of suspect that the whole thing is a farce. Like, I just think it's a bit weird that his brother, William, married Kate Middleton, who's this demure, elegant, very pretty white woman, who's the kind of person you would expect, well, basically a member of the British royal family to marry. And she's also like the kind of person that Harry used to date like years ago. But then out of left field, just for some bizarre reason, Harry, who's also a prince of the British royal family, ends up marrying this, at the time of their marriage, 36-year-old divorcee, like Z-list actress, mixed race Z-list actress. It's just kind of weird. I'm just saying, I wouldn't be at all surprised to learn that he's not even attracted to her, and that the marriage happened for political reasons, basically.
Well, because I wonder if like through most of human history, there wasn't so much of a stigma of. I mean, even if it was something that you'd kind of keep, not in polite conversation, but people would gossip, about, unsuitable matches or whatever, things like that with various standards. And like we've reached the point where it's actually peak like condemnation of any sort of comment of that whatsoever. Yeah. And it's not even just like what it used to be of the history of their family or their status or whatever. Like now it's to the point of it's like doesn't matter. Like sex doesn't matter. Obviously, race and stuff doesn't matter. But even like, do they do anything? Like there's practically nothing. There's almost no bastions left, right? You can't even shame someone for like going for a criminal or whatever. At least like that's the trajectory. And I wonder if like this was kind of just like the peak manifestation of that. Of how there was just absolutely no intervention because of that stigma. I'm just speculating, obviously, but I don't know. To me, that kind of fits, and I think this massive spectacle of it maybe is going to start to push that pendulum back.
Well, the theory is that they married, they had Prince William marry Kate Middleton because she was like the nice, safe option, so to speak. The person that you'd expect a person of the British royal family to marry. But then with Harry, they decided they wanted to sort of try to be with it, like be up to date with modern political mores, such that in the future, this is Millennial Woes' theory, I'm borrowing it from him, in the future, if, say, the political climate in Britain were to change such that, I don't know, towards ethno-nationalism or towards a more conservative way of life, for lack of a better word, the royal family could say, they could say something, well, Harry was always a bit of a rebel, something like this, but we had William pair up with the nice, safe option. So they've got to, don't know how to explain it. They have, they're just trying to cover all bases so that if the world changes direction politically, then they've got a leg to stand on. And then at the same time, if things just continue as they are, then they can say that they're being woke and with it and so on because of Harry's marriage. So it makes sense politically speaking, actually. Like if I were in their position, like maybe it's the sort of scheme I would craft if I was their parents or grandparents.
I mean, maybe. I guess as conspiratorial as it is still, like, I guess, a relatively simple plan, but it just, does it really matter that much to them, though? I mean, they're kind of set, right? They can kind of coast. Like, that's kind of what they do. They coast. They have the everything got sorted out. They have a big pile of money, and then that money just pays for itself and supports their lifestyle. They just do bullshit philanthropy, and they do little princess waves and parades every once in a while, and that's about it, right? Oh, and the Queen gives a speech. Yeah, the Queen's peach every Christmas. That's everything I know about the royal family, right? So this whole idea, like, oh, let's make sure we have like highly cosmetic, like Plan B, like marriage things with our kids. Such like it's just, I don't know. It seems weird. I can kind of see it though. They don't want to be seen as like old and white and whatever. But like, does it really matter though? Like, what's really at stake? Or I guess what's really at risk is what I mean.
Well, I don't know. Just their PR, I suppose. Public relations.
I guess we could also argue that they're a bunch of like eccentric, rich, like inbreds. So we shouldn't assume that like it's going to be the most rational decisions either. So
no,
gotta roll a few D20s and see how that factors in.
Yeah, they just exist, basically. That's their function in the British political system, to exist.
It's just like a really fancy and specific existence. And you gotta realize, like, that's really interesting because they probably can't relate to, like, anyone.
No. Not even other rich people.
Yeah, like if you're born into, like a super mega rich family, you're probably just like in a community of other people that are still like that, right? So there's still the sense of like people who are not your direct family members are in a similar situation, that it's still relatable. And that's true of essentially all income levels, but their situation is this like really specific political thing. I guess it's really only like monarchy or royalty, I should say, that has that. I'd never thought of that before. It's kind of obvious in hindsight, but doesn't make me feel bad for any of them, though. I just want to make sure there's no confusion there. I'm not about to feel bad.
Yeah.
So that was Millennial Woes' theory on how the royal family probably arranged Prince Harry's marriage, basically to be a disaster. But I mean, I guess they're getting what they signed up for under that theory, right? That she would, really, get it on record, right? That they want to right past wrongs or whatever.
Yeah, and I mean, the next, of course, you know what the next tabloid drama is going to be, which is that he's going to like get a mistress or something, and that's gonna cause all sorts of confusion and uproar for reasons. I mean, I care about it in as much as I find it amusing, and I find just like the spectacle of the public's reaction to it amusing. But some people really care about this stuff, like get really invested into the drama of it. It's sort of like how uh, people enjoy watching TV shows like Downton Abbey or Gossip Girl, which is about rich, like Upper East Siders and stuff, even though they're the same kind of people who advocate wealth redistribution programs, for instance, and are on the political left. For whatever reason, there's just like, there's something in people's character that just enjoys watching these stories about the rich and powerful. Like, nobody really wants to see a story or like a saga about generic poor people. They want to watch stories that are about lords and ladies, literally speaking, like in a traditional feudal monarchy, or just rich people generally. And there's like this whole pomp and circumstance to it, which people seem to find very exciting, even if they would profess that they don't agree with it politically. It's really weird. I don't know how to make sense of it.
Well, you know what's funny is originally I'm thinking that comparison is a little bit unfair, because with Gossip Girl and with this modern stuff, it's like this. It's all this like consumerist crap, you know. It's like it's all just and it's all just like stuff you get for yourself, right? It's like you swig down a pumpkin spice latte and crush it, and then throw it over your shoulder into a trash can or whatever. And it's just like thing after thing of just like unnecessary expensive luxury items. Whereas in Downton Abbey, it was at least like it was fascinating because it was like this whole ecosystem of these houses and all of the upkeep and how insane it is, and it's such like a crazy thing to see. But then I guess if you look at it another way, all of this obsession with like the furniture and the silverware and everything being dusted and polished and perfect, and all of the outfits being right, like it really is the same kind of like capitalist luxury bullshit. Right? But it feels more dignified because it's old. There's more frills and lace and whatever.
Yeah, I mean, there was a time when they could have justified their position in society, through, on Downton Abbey, they would, to a certain extent. They would say, we're providing jobs for all the servants and all that. But, it was getting to that point in history where the nouveau riche class were becoming more prominent in industry, in society, in the industrialized world. And their ilk, the world of feudal monarchs and dukes and earls and so on, was just, or I think they were earls in the case of Downton Abbey, for instance, which is like the third or fourth rank down. I can't remember. But even like, so it was at the point where they were having to justify their existence in a way that they hadn't previously. So that wasn't interesting, I guess, generated all sorts of conflict. Did you see any of it yourself?
Downton Abbey, yeah. I watched how much of it did I think I watched the first 3 seasons, and then I kind of started to lose interest.
That's exactly the point where you should stop watching. I felt like
oh, really?
Yeah, because I felt like there was a natural arc that should have ended basically when Mary and Matthew got married. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, because I think their marriage was kind of the overarching, like, that does seem like the main one, wasn't it? I mean, I guess I don't remember the names of all the characters that well. When did I watch it? It was, God, it must have been 5 or 6 years ago.
Oh, right. Yeah, I've seen some of it quite recently, so I guess you're at a disadvantage in that respect. But yeah, I remember there was an episode where the servants, they were trying to like eat the biscuits that they leave biscuits on Lady Sybil's bedside or something, in like on the bedside cabinets, which they never eat. Right, it all just goes to waste, and like that causes all kinds of drama. when the servants just eat them, even though Lady Sybil is like quite genial and isn't the sort of person who would care, because or just because of the social hierarchy, like you're not allowed to do things like that, even if it's completely stupid and wasteful.
Oh, okay. I do remember her character. I think, well, this must have happened in the first season then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She died pretty early on, I think.
Hey, spoilers. But yeah, I knew that. I think it was in the second season. So, I found a bunch of articles here, and I accidentally happened upon a theme of like just teachers being assholes, which is great because it was about a year ago that I had a whole dedicated stream to nurses being assholes, and it seems like in 2021 it's a lot of the same bullshit as last year, but like teachers I think are now the main flavorful asshole class, whereas before it was nurses always, just being dramatic about how they're on the front lines and they're so underappreciated. And don't shame me for making my TikTok video over my dying patients, because we just need to let some steam off. My God. And now but the teachers managed to be even more pathetic. I don't know if you saw, I posted, there was this comic. Where is it? This one here. I'm going to put this up on screen. It's super short. It's only like a few pages, but it's like the most funny and like pathetic bullshit. Okay, here we go. Yeah, so it was an NPR. This is an NPR. We can use our NPR voices. So here was a comic published just last week. It was this dramatic thing. I'm just gonna paraphrase it because it's written really like ridiculously. So I'm kind of a comedian. I'm a fun teacher. I get a lot of energy from the crowd. This has been rough. Right? And it's because, oh no, she's on Zoom now, and all she sees are their initials, because they won't turn on their cameras. And she says, for 9 weeks, this just goes on, and she has these boring, low-energy classes where she has no idea if they're learning anything. And she's sitting there for 9 weeks teaching a class like this, and she's just wondering to herself, how could I possibly solve this problem that I've been having for 9 weeks, which is the same problem every single fucking day for 9 weeks? Oh, the conundrum, because she's just a math teacher / comedian. How could she ever think of a basic solution to this? Well, it turns out the solution is to break down and cry in front of your students. You break down and cry in front of all of them. You go to the Chick-fil-A on your lunch break in the parking lot with another teacher and cry in the parking lot together. It's not satire. And oh, it's like an aquarium, blah blah blah. And she's like, oh, eventually they laughed. And she's so happy now. Oh, and everything is so engaging, and everything has changed now. Oh, and it's all so sweet and touching. And teachers, after hearing this story about how this adult, like, I don't know, just like broke down over chicken and over not being able to do her job. Anyway, that's the first in a series of many.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say about that, but it's just like it's so ridiculous how there's absolutely no like value placed on stoicism at all. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Just the more of a just emotional mess.
Hysteria.
Really, and you see it in politics too, right? Like over the whole the whole Capitol riot thing. It was almost like a contest, particularly between female politicians, to see who was the most terrified and the most affected. And like that's what people look for in leadership.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
Oh, just sorry, I know it's not strictly relevant. I just remembered something that I actually wanted to tell you. So, the same guy who wrote Downton Abbey, so his name is Julian Fellows. He's releasing a new series sometime this year, I think, maybe towards the tail end of this year, and it's going to be on HBO. and it's basically the same flavor of story as Downton Abbey was. Like, it's about the upper classes, except this time it's going to be set in America during the Gilded Age in the 1880s, which, if anything, will actually be more interesting to me than Downton Abbey was, if they can pull it off. Just more moving parts to it generally, because well, there's a couple of reasons. One of them is that America, I think, had a more realistic upper class, or adaptive, I guess you could say, than the British at the time, because being at the very top of society during those times was compatible with the concept of work in the United States. And you had, like, you know, the railroad companies and the Rockefellers and the Fords and so on. So that sort of will be an interesting new angle on it to explore. And the other thing is just that I think it's that period of, like, the late 19th century to the very early 20th century, like from, say, 1880 until, I don't know, just before the First World War. I regard that as the zenith of Western civilization, like the time when our civilization was at its most confident. We hadn't been, you know, shattered by the wars. The sort of the hegemonic, the cultural hegemony of the church was ending, so people had freedom to discuss new ideas in the philosophy of religion, and there was just this sense of fresh air, basically, like a new sort of freedom, intellectual freedom, attendant to that period, just because it was like the start of the industrialized world as we know it. There was this sense of, like, we've made it through the eons of struggle, and here we are at the height of civilization, and now we can turn our attention to other things like aesthetics and you know, space travel. It's when the genre of science fiction began, and I think it's because of all these different factors sort of came together to create, like, a cultural renaissance. And it was, I risk repeating myself if I go on, but it was just a more innocent time, I think, a more optimistic time by a long way. And it's why we have these genres like retrofuturism, steampunk, because the steam engine was sort of characteristic of that age. And steampunk as an aesthetic, what it basically tries to do is that it isolates the sort of the technological features of that era and extrapolates it into the level of a complete aesthetic that that sort of encompasses the entire society, like in a fictional setting, because of just basically the sense of cultural nostalgia that era instills in people. So yeah, I think that'll be fun. So yeah.
Oh yeah, and steampunk could have been real, but basically everything you're saying about the Gilded Age is like what libertarians kind of say about it, and then because the Gilded Age is exalted as this example of, you know, like a lot of basic principles of the way economics actually works, because of that, everybody slanders it, and they say, oh, you want everyone to go back to the Gilded Age. And, like, the one thing they point to is they say economic inequality. And as far as I can tell, if that's your number one gripe with a situation, then, like, that's an endorsement, you know? Like, you know, inequality is not necessarily a bad thing. You know, if the rising tide lifts all boats, right, is the phrase they always use. So yeah, I will be interested in seeing that series, because I was not aware of that, and I probably should have checked with you before I moved on to that article. But do you know
right.
Do you know what it's called?
I'll just post the Wikipedia page in the main. It's just called The Gilded Age. That's what it's going to be called.
I see.
Cast looks promising. No diversity casting, pretty much, it looks like.
Well.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at my stream settings. It says the stream status is poor, and I'm wondering what I should do to fix it. I put the latency on the moderate setting, which I think was a good call.
Yeah, just thinking about it, like, I've came up with just a good sort of snappy way to summarize it. It's like it was an optimism that was brought about because of like the new technology and sort of the massive amounts of wealth that it created, a rising tide lifting all boats and so on. So that was cause for optimism, combined with the fact that we hadn't been crushed yet by either of the world wars, and also the invention of the camera. Because the invention of the camera was really instrumental, I think, in the sort of like the new art movements that were rising at the time. Like you had post-impressionism and Art Nouveau and Art Deco a little bit later, especially in America, Deco was a thing. I think it's because once the camera was invented and you could just, well, there was no real need for realistic painting anymore because of the camera. So people started to wonder, like, what else could you do?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I think even without the camera, though, that's kind of just the trajectory of that, that kind of movement.
Yeah.
And I suppose music kind of went through the same thing with, being able to record everything.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see. Well, I mean, because it'll be interesting either way, because if it's done well, then it's good. And if it's done, like, in a really bad or propagandistic way or something like that, then that'll also make it really interesting.
I was a little bit worried by one of the actress interviews, because there's, like, one on YouTube. This Carrie Coon woman, like, there's an interview of her somewhere on YouTube talking about her role in this production. And she said something about it's politically topical, like this period of history, because, and you can probably guess what she said, right? She said it's because it's the time when our economy was most stratified.
Yeah,
so I hope
just like I said,
yeah.
Right? Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So I hope they don't just make it all about that, because that would just be horrible.
Dude, the most base thing ever would be if they told all the actors and actresses that to get them to sign on, right? And then the script is just, like, actually realistic, and that's actually not really a theme. That'd be amazing. Why can't I just have the things I want?
Downton Abbey was pretty realistic, all things considered, and, they kept it sort of period appropriate, but they had to, like, sort of arbitrarily throw in some politically correct storylines just to, like, appease the sorts of people who look for that kind of thing. So, like, you can probably remember, like, Sybil and her whole thing with votes for women.
Was
Was a subplot, and, like, her Irish driver or whatever. And that obviously caused all sorts of drama between her and her father. And I mean, that aspect to it was fairly realistic, but it was a bit, like, annoying even at the time. It's just like, they had to get that in there.
Well, yeah, it's so funny because, like, anybody from the future, or even if someone from the past were to watch it, like, they'd find these shows so fascinating, not just because of their depiction of whatever time they're supposed to be, but because they also reflect the time in which they're made in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that very often, these kinds of historical things, we really are making caricatures of ourselves without realizing it or intending it.
Do you just mean because future generations will sort of laugh at our values, or, like, the values that were prevalent at this time in history?
I mean, I hope so. I really hope so.
Yeah, I really hope so also.
I mean, you can only take analism so far. We're gonna have to move away from it eventually.
Yeah. It is, like, I came up with that name just kind of offhand. I didn't put a huge
And then
amount of
and then
thought
you
into
see it
but
everywhere. And then you see it everywhere. It's like as soon as it was named, I was like, oh, that's analism. Oh, that's analism. Oh, that's analism. Like shit, this really should be a real Wikipedia page. Like,
yeah, like that YouTube video, the the child-friendly content.
I will say,
Like,
abortionism is like almost as like widespread. Except, but with that, it's more of just like a really dumb knuckle dragging whataboutist kind of an impulse people have to just, well, what about abortion? But analism's funnier because you can see it as like a more like abstract set of values.
yeah,
With abortion, it's just like this dumb impulse to be like, I want to kill a baby. I should be allowed.
yeah. By the way, I wanted to tell you about one of my sort of grand plans that I have, so to speak, and how it could be realistically implemented. So we discussed this before about how, well, I mean, it's often said that there are only two possible states of the world. This is TFM's dialectic, right? And I think he's basically correct. There's the state of the world where men have more power and more responsibility, and women consequently also have less power and fewer responsibilities. Or there's the world that we currently live in, however you care to describe it. There doesn't appear to be any third option, where women sort of step up to the table with men and assume equal responsibility to go along with the powers or the excessive amounts of power that we've given them. And the reason for this isn't so much, I mean, the way that I think about it isn't that it's not that men are particularly intelligent or competent in and of themselves. It's more just the case that people are naturally primed to see men's decisions as being more significant and more causally efficacious, I guess, to use the technical term, than women's decisions. And that's why you have the abortion situation where nobody wants paper abortion to be a thing, and a man's just the mere act of having sex means that he's consenting to be a father. And that has a kind of causal power which is considered to be more profound than a woman's multiple unilateral choices. So this is why we should have a society that tries to sort of recapture traditional mores, but there will be caveats to it, obviously. So I said last time we could use technology to implement a system of how to organize like marriages and stuff, which would basically be designed to constrain hypergamy and avoid perpetual adolescence, you know, get people paired off at the time when they're most likely to be most attracted to each other, instead of just allowing that to become a major cause of stress in later life when everything gets difficult. People, you know, rushing around trying to find partners and so on. And I propose that the way that you could do this is you could devise a kind of app or a system whereby people would be matched sort of homogamously to well, like I said, to prevent hypergamy. So like a man who was at the 50th percentile of male height, which is like, what, 5'10" in Britain, would be matched with a woman with the same sex-adjusted height percentile, roughly, or, you know, near as. It doesn't have to be perfect. So a woman who is also of the average female height. And then if you're 5'8", which is more like, I don't know, the 20th percentile, you'll be matched with approximately a 20th percentile woman. And basically the same principle would apply to facial aesthetics and income, or, you know, future income, and whatever other potential factors that you think are relevant.
Yeah, okay, because you've mentioned this before, yeah. So you can like quantify attraction, then you kind of pair up people off that way. But then, like the obvious problem with that is women will hate that system. Like 90% of all women, and then the other 10% will be convinced to go along. Like just 100% of women will say that's a horrible tyrannical system because they'll always, in their view, be matched with someone below their looks match.
Well, so I sort of have like a plan for how we could maybe get around that, you know, hypothetically speaking. But
does it have
so
anything to do with the disparity in upper body strength? No, I'm just sorry. That was a.
No, it's a bit more Machiavellian than that. But so what's it? Where was I? Oh yeah, so when people are young, obviously you don't necessarily know what their future income potential is, if you think that's a factor that's relevant. So you would need a way to compute something like likely future earning potential. And also you could gather together a whole bunch of factors that positively correlate with relationship success and all the rest of it, and you know, personality types, whatever sort of details you think are relevant, as far as like matching people for personality, if you think there's some value in that. And there's sort of multiple ways that this could be done. So like intelligence is a relatively easy thing to test and it's hard to cheat. But with personality, it's like you can just devise a very simple test for intelligence, and it's difficult for people to cheat it. But it's easier for people to cheat on a personality test. So what you could do is you could use people's like browser history and their purchasing history, which is already used in basically their social media history and activity and whatever, which is already used by companies on the internet, advertisers, tracking, like, you know, what products you give your attention to and so on. And in principle, you could use all of the same methods to generate like a personality readout. You could sort of triangulate based on the person's family members, heritability, because personality and like all these traits are heritable to a certain extent. You could sort of triangulate that way based on where their family's situated with respect to all these attributes. And you could put all of these things together into a model which would best predict relationship success. And just to sort of like throw people a bone in terms of like their actual expressed desires and stuff, you could get some idea of what their like type is in the opposite sex or the same sex or whatever based on their search history, just in principle anyway. And then all of those things could get thrown into the model, and then you would basically get as kind of quite aside from that, and this is what we discussed last time, you would get basically sort of a social credit rating, like a social credit score, based on how conducive your behavior is to averting hypergamy and to promoting long-term relationship stability and all the rest of it. And if you wanted to, you could add and that would like the higher your score, the more financial reward there would be, that you would get basically a payout from, you know, the state or whatever else. And theoretically also you could sort of you could extend this like into marriages if you're concerned about, like, I don't know, fertility rates or whatever. But that's not necessary. It's not something that I'm really that concerned about. But if you really wanted to, you could extend this further and start paying people to have children and whatever. And then the other aspect to it, which we've also discussed, is that you would have society, schools, universities. So schools and universities, presupposing that they're sort of state-run as they are in many societies, they would be sort of sex segregated. And then with the workforce, there would be that choice, right? So employers would have the ability to discriminate. And this would basically, by restoring, well, I think it would get around men's issues in many ways. So with the abortion issue, for instance, if you're going to prohibit abortion, it has to be for like both of the sexes equally. It doesn't look as though people are going to go in for the paper abortion thing. That's not going to happen. So the way you resolve that is that women have to be responsible for the choice to reproduce, and men also have to be responsible for that choice. The sex segregation thing gets around the Me Too issue and various other things. So, yeah, do you think it's like decent as just an all-in utilitarian approach?
Well, yeah, I mean, because obviously the first question for me is how necessary is it for it to be compulsory and to include everyone for it to work? And it's an interesting question, right? Because, for example, if you have it set up in such a way that it's like, hey, here's this cool new app that you can totally opt into, and it's like a matchmaking app, and here's all these cool things about it, right? And you have this really great way of marketing it.
It's financially rewarded. You have to add that element to it as well, like the financial reward as well.
Yeah, well, and I feel like how honest do you have to be about the fact that this social credit rating within the app, which you obviously you can't call it that, you don't want to be associated with that, that is based on hypergamy, right? Because if that's front and center part of it, that's also going to scare everyone away except for the men. And there's already a little bit of a sausage fest problem, I think, in all dating apps. So you have to find a way to like offset that too, right? I suppose the way it's set up though is that women are the ones who would see the financial advantage.
So it's like, I know it's very Machiavellian, but you have to keep two assumptions in mind. One is that most people are mindless sheep, and the second is that most people are willing to go along with anything. Like, that's my working assumption. If you can come up with a plausible sounding story about how it's good for women. So basically you would put this sort of plan into effect by means of lie maxing, essentially. Like, you would sort of start a political party, and you would literally make it very feminist friendly or feminist adjacent, something like this. You could call yourselves like warriors against male depravity or some shit like that normies would absolutely love, because they love that sort of thing, right? And then you just have to say, like, for instance, like the height matching thing, just this is an example. You can say, oh yeah, that's designed to help women. That's designed to help, like, the poor tall women who are getting rejected by depraved short men, and so on for all of the other variables involved. You just bullshit and lie max your way to Arabian modernism. That's what I'm calling this, Arabian modernism.
Arabian modernism?
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to name this part of the stream Ashley's secret plan to overthrow the gynocracy.
Oh.
We'll go with what, Arabian monarchism? Why is it Arabian?
Modernism. Arabian, just in the sense that because I was thinking of like Paulo's comment when he said it was like an Islamic theocracy. I mean, it's sort of tongue-in-cheek, right? Just in the sense that it's, I don't know, very patriarchal and very authoritarian, something like that.
Yeah, Arabian modernism is a much better name than secular Quranism. It's got that going for it.
Yeah, so like the snag is that like, so I don't, I'm not convinced that men are amazingly competent or intelligent for a wide variety of reasons. And I'm also not tremendously preoccupied with reinstating absolute female gender roles, because it just seems to have been completely outmoded by technology. And I'm not worried about the birth rate. So you have to sort of find a way to accommodate this within the context of modern technology, household appliances, and all the rest of it. And I would suggest that the way it should be done is that you simply give employers and male prospective marriage partners the choice as to whether or not they're going to be cucks, right? So in other words, women can choose to go into the workforce alongside men, or they can choose to not go into the workforce and be mothers, but they can't choose to do both simultaneously, right? So you could imagine having like allowing men to make this sort of a stipulation of the marriage contract, and then on the employer side you could allow them to make it a stipulation of their contract that you've got to stick to the job for X amount of time and you can't drop out to have kids, otherwise we're gonna take you to court and so on. So that's where the modernism part comes in, as opposed to just raw Arabian patriarchy, which I'm not that into.
Yeah, well, it sounds like the
I'm not
modernism
sure.
is actually just you're implementing it through, I mean, just basic like non-aggressive means, partly because it's more effective. I mean, because it's just like with everybody talking about mask mandates and stuff like that. The moment you talk about being compulsory, that's when you get the major resistance, which is what anyone like me would have told everyone. And now everybody has like learned that lesson, and I don't know.
How much mileage do you think we could get out of lie maxing realistically? Because I have no moral qualms about that, but it's just like there are a lot of things that could be framed in gynocentric terms, like the dating app, for instance. That would actually be pretty easy to couch in gynocentric language. It would be very amusing to people who actually understood what was going on, you know, just to see it happening. But I think, you know, a lot of people would sort of go along with that if there was some plausible sounding story like that.
Oh yeah, you know what they could even do is what you do is with the app is it's actually a network of dating apps, and each one is flavored as though it's like a different like club or a meeting place or whatever, right? And you have one that's like totally trad themed and very Christian, and then you have one that's very like, I don't know, like what would be the progressive one? It would be like the Gossip Girl themed one, you know, like
Just debased consumerism.
yeah, and then you can, you know, you throw your gay one in there, throw your you obviously have two gay ones because you have like a traditional gay one and then your pan friendly gay one. Yep. Yeah. So and then what you do is you present this right in the same language as like choice feminism, right? Where it's all about whatever a woman wants. It can be anything as long as it's what she wants. It's good, right? So how dare you ever say that there's an objectively better thing for women to do here or there, that there should be any finite fixed standard for anything, right? It's just pure gynocentric moral relativism, which is repackaged as choice feminism, and that entire body of language is already, you just lift that, then that's exactly the way you would, you know, pimp out this kind of app. That's how I would imagine. I think it'd be kind of funny, right, to do one app that's like you're downloading a community of them, and then you could like hop into different ones with the same profile.
Yeah, but the other aspects to it would probably be a harder sell, I should think. Like, for instance, the idea of like taking away anti-discrimination laws. That one is going to be much harder to lie max about, even if you're really clever about the lies. That's going to be a tricky one.
Right. Yeah. Well, well, here's the thing, right? You're talking. So when you ask, is lie maxing offensive? This is, or not offensive. Effective. This is just Inkwellian for, does lying work?
Yeah.
It's a very silly question. Of course it does. But also it works both ways. So I don't know. Maybe people who get it are just going to be, you know, that slim percentage of the population who are black pilled or red pilled, right? And they'll just, you know, they'll be able to, you know, get their red pill premium by manipulating the system. Everybody else is just like a blue pill retard who's just gonna, you know, get turned into the proper area, and they'll be better off for it, so there'll be no complaints. Right? So in theory, it seems reasonable enough.
Yeah.
How hard is it to make a dating app? There's so many of them. It can't be. There's got to be just like a simple way to just clone one, and then you just like switch out a few banners and change things around just a little bit. Is that super illegal to just build it off of someone else's template, but that it's different enough that it's transformative? How does that? That's probably a very, very complicated question.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing, though. All of your ideas are so offensive, and if those things are incorporated into it, right, they could never accuse you of like just being a copycat, because the whole reason everybody's pissed off about it is all of the new things with it. So it has that going for it. Copyright immunity for being outrageous.
And there's also other techniques that I've been thinking about that could aid in the criminal justice process that could also be it's a really good idea. This should obviously it's not the sort of thing that you could acknowledge publicly, but there should be a branch of like the men's rights movement or anti-feminism or whatever that just makes it their mission to craft extremely clever basically lies to frame men's issues in completely gynocentric language and then see how much mileage they can get out of that, because I think that'll be a more effective strategy than anything that's been tried so far, if I might be so bold. And another thing that I've been thinking about recently is that
wait. I'm sorry, I need that clarified. You're saying there should be like men's rights agents that are just like deliberately finding the most provocative stuff in order to get people to, right? Like it's like a reverse psychology approach, or do you just mean like vanilla propagandists that are anti-men's rights? I missed the very first part.
I meant like finding ways to reframe men's issues or whatever in gynocentric terms to sort of get the public on board from with initiatives that are designed to help men.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And
you could do like an advertisement for the app that's like like a smash the patriarchy one. What if that was the app? It's called Smasher. Help you smash. And it's for smashing the patriarchy also. I think that's the name. I think that's the name of at least one of its things.
Yeah. So,
Smasher.
how the courts in domestic disputes are it's very difficult to to expect them to be impartial because they have an overwhelming bias in the favor of women. So there's actually something you could do here, I think, is that have the court proceedings take place with a judge and all the rest of it, but then that's not when the final decision comes into place, right? Record everything or have a machine like put it into text, right? And then you could sort of find methods to obscure the genders of the people involved. So like give everybody involved male names, or replace all of the voices with male voice actors or something like this, if it was an audio recording. And then give all of this information or all of the transcript from the court to a third party who is also a judge that doesn't know like the actual genders of the people involved, so that it's always a case of like as far as they know, it's I don't know, like two gay men or something in a domestic dispute, like as far as they know, because of the obscuring of the identities of the people involved. And maybe this could lead to more impartial decisions. I know that's just like really kind of off the cuff, how like because obviously you'd expect the majority of these disputes to be male-female, just because that's what most relationships are like, and so like you'd think most people would catch on to the fact that there's something sort of fishy going on. But there's got to be a fairly reliable way of doing that. That is to sort of trick a third party who, wasn't present in person into acting as though everybody involved was male, and therefore giving like a fair sentence or the same sentence that you would give to a man in these scenarios. There's got to be a way to do it. I just can't like think of exactly how off the top of my head. Do you know what I'm talking about, sort of?
No, yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I mean, it sounds like a lot of it is just strategic marketing.
Yeah.
And it's red/black pill marketing, which is an interesting idea, right? All of that knowledge. Yeah, it's a way to, I guess, use it for good potentially. It really does seem like it's basically all in on this kind of dating app, though. Like it could be something that's done like without. I mean, obviously, there's ways to conceive of improving it, right? If you had, the monarch magic wand of whatever laws and everything you want to happen automatically, right? But it seems like that may not be necessary, which is really cool. Could this be a rare potential just, like, men's issues solution?
And you could just so like for the project that I just outlined for less biased criminal court proceedings and so on, you could easily just make up a story about how, I don't know, women are discriminated against in the criminal justice system, and say that that's why we need this technology, and to put these measures in place to make sure it's all gender neutral. And the public will buy that because they'll buy any story that is perceived to be like to the benefit of women, so that we can move forward.
Oh, and it's so funny, right? Because you'll obviously see a statistical increase, and it would be interesting to see how many people just brazenly argue that, we can't have these policies anymore because it hurts women. Like, or I mean, the smarter move would be to just kind of let it play out and sweep it under the rug, because people aren't aware of statistics anyway. And it's not like they actually care about women. So if more female criminals end up getting justice, in theory, that's something that everybody should just let happen and we shouldn't take issue with, right? Hopefully they have the foresight to anticipate that if they try to draw attention to that issue, it really is kind of like a, it's setting yourself up for like a one-move checkmate,
Yeah, I mean, there's part of me that wants to think that if you had people brazenly arguing that we can't do this because it's I don't know, bad for women or something to treat them the same as men, maybe there would be like some self-awareness,
a bit of that eureka moment, but but I don't want to get my hopes up.
Seems very unlikely.
I mean, we got people on Twitter, right, pimping out their mental gymnastics of, 2 + 2 is not always 4, right? Like moral relativism to such an extreme that it's in mathematics now too. Like, so given that element's there and doesn't appear to be going away, there doesn't seem to be any way for it to eradicate itself. Like, there's always just some contingent of people who love that absurd kind of shit.
Yeah.
Or it'll be a Titania McGrath Babylon Bee kind of thing. Did you see Babylon Bee? I'm actually surprised no one made this joke earlier. It was teen boy soccer team demands equal pay for beating women's soccer team.
Oh yeah, I saw that. It was hilarious.
That gave me that was a nice chuckle.
I know it was just like satire, but that should happen in real life. It would be great.
Well, it's funny, right? Because how much shit gets implemented on that exact argument in favor of women, and then you propose something like that, and that's deemed, ridiculous. So
yeah, it's such a waste of money. Like, there was actually something like this in the news here in Britain recently. Hold on. Britain supermarkets equal pay. I'll just see if I can bring up the story.
But there is one issue though with trying to, like I guess with the courts you could record transition and kind of like like randomize it, right? And in theory, I guess if you preserve all that information and then have like your alternate court, you could like have two trials, one where one's a gender flip of the other, or they're both a mix, right?
Yeah.
But the problem though is, you know what though, when you try to
kind of
no,
but just had a thought, you could produce some kind of like just have different courts with different gender combinations, like as far as the judges in question are concerned, and then they'll all give like different sentences, right, because of their respective biases in each case, because of the sort of the gender relations involved. And then you could give some kind of like a weighted average.
Yeah, you split the difference, or you average them all up. Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, but I think that there's so many reasons that isn't gonna work. I don't think, because for starters, like if you make like a perfectly gender flipped version of like a whole case, it's just you're naturally gonna run into something where it just doesn't make sense, and then the jurors are gonna know like, oh, I got the gender flipped one, like this is all like fake, and you're actually and then that's a big distraction, right? And like you could try to do that where like one of the cases is just the case as is, right? But it's naturally gonna look way more authentic than any of the altered ones. So then if you try to do what I also thought of, which is like doing like a salad version, right, where you try to shuffle up not all but part of it, that's gonna fuck everything up too, because it's gonna like make a bunch of people gay. It's gonna like it's gonna have like men breastfeeding, you know. It's gonna like the bathroom situation was already confusing in normal reality, right? Like it'll be something like you scramble a gender and then they went to the bathroom to talk about something, and then you realize like, oh, there's supposed to be two women, you know, powdering their nose, but the algorithm of the law just turned one of them into a man, and now I know I'm in a simulation. Like and then also just like how time consuming and how much like effort it takes to do all this crap in court, and mistrials, right? Just like any number of shit that could just go wrong in one of the cases, and then that fucks up your algorithm. And then what happens if like the only version of your trial is one that's like heavily synthetic and like that's the one that your sentence ends up being based on? I see all like the law is already just garbage. I think that trying to make it all coded, unless we can get robot jurors to just like simulate what the outcomes would all be in a way that people are reasonably assured is fair. We create like a matrix society of people who have constant jury duty.
Or just replace the judges with robots that are programmed to be gender neutral. I don't know.
That's probably that just goes to the heart of the problem, rather than trying to make the whole world fit judges being not good. We should just replace them.
Yeah. And judges' decisions are influenced by all sorts of weird things, like literally how clean the court is on the day of the trial will, whether or not the judge has had breakfast and so on, will make a difference to the sentence. It's pretty scary. Like, don't ever get into trouble with the law for this reason. Like, it's actually been studied, these effects. So...
No, yeah, and like the whole point of it, right, is it's supposed to be law and order, but when you have like just this laundry list of completely random things that end up having these like Final Destination style mousetrap bullshit situations that, you know, could end in, you know, 10 extra years, 20 extra years.
Yeah, I just posted in the main, I've like tagged you this, so this was a story in Britain recently. You might find this kind of interesting.
The UK supermarket chain Asda loses ruling over equal pay claim. Okay, so somebody claimed they weren't paying them equally, and then what, it turned out they actually were overpaying them or something, or that they weren't doing the equal work.
From what I understand, it was like the women working like as cashiers or something were claiming that they weren't being paid equally with like the men in logistics who like shuffle the food around in the warehouses and like do all the heavy lifting and stuff. Like they would get paid more, and they claimed that this was like pay inequality, so they like tried to take the supermarket to court over it. And,
yeah, that's what it says here. The company argued that the depot and store jobs are not comparable. Yeah, that's like there's two different jobs. Sorry.
But yeah, they're not comparable. It's like, I was talking to my mother about it, the way it just seems to be like based on the women's feelings. It's like, oh, I feel like it's equal, okay, but it's not fucking equal, is it? Like the company isn't just doling out pay to people randomly. Like they're paying the depot workers more because they think the job's more valuable. Otherwise, like, they would just be wasting money on it. So.
Well, and I think that the reason people feel entitled to making these kinds of ridiculous demands is that nobody ever like slaps them on the wrist and says like, "Hey, like that was an accusation you just made. You just said that 2/3 of this company's employees that they're doing it based on just this arbitrary sexism, right? Like you've accused them of just being not just like you've accused them of being bigoted, which is whatever. Some people give that weight. I don't care. You don't care, obviously, either. But but it's also the accusation that they're just dumb. I think that's like way more offensive, right? Because I could see the company, like, let's say they're bigoted, right? Even if they're bigoted, they'll still pay the people they're bigoted against the same or whatever is fair based on the market, because they have nothing to gain by screwing them over. It's not based on their business, you know? Like, I think the real true accusation that should be offensive is that you're calling your company dumb. And we know why you're working for them if that's how you really feel. But there should be a backlash to that where we say, hey, like, you made an accusation. You can't just make baseless accusations against people. And the only defense to that, right? You just say, well, here were my reasons for thinking that, you know, and then that gives you that plausible deniability for saying this is why I made the accusation, and then it lightens the blow, and when you end up being wrong. But for these women, it literally just looks like, oh, well, we're 2/3 of the people and we don't make as much. And it's like, yeah, no shit. Most things are kind of pyramid shaped. Like, the most common kind of employee is probably the one that's paid the least. If you're 2/3 of the people working for the company, you're probably taking up that bottom part of that pyramid just by quantity.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It's that, like, anyone who's like ever played with blocks as a 3-year-old, I think could have pieced that together. So. Yeah, fuck them.
Hang on, I'm gonna close my curtains. I'll be back.
This was another funny article that Ann Coulter wrote about that shooting. This hilarious article about the shooting. This was the one where the guy shot up the massage parlors, right? And obviously he did it because they were capitalists and they were exploiting him. Yeah, I don't know if you saw this Ann Coulter article. Asian women are too damn hot. I thought it was pretty funny.
Yeah, I didn't really understand what it was talking about, but it was funny.
Well, the point of it was just she's just mocking all of these Asian liberal women who responded to the shooting by commenting about how they're constantly harassed because all these men, all they want to do is fuck them because they're just so fucking hot. And I'm really, it's really important that us as a nation all discuss how hot Asian women are in the wake of this shooting, right?
Yeah.
So it's very funny.
It's a bit repulsive. Yeah, but funny as well. Also.
I'm trying to find, like, what was the Here we go. Christine Lee Wong Dixon modestly began her tale of oppression for the Washington Post The Lily. When I was 16, a boy I thought was my friend said, I can't figure you out. Asian girls are either smart or hot, but you're both. She's older and married now, but still cherishes this comment from high school.
Things that happened.txt.
Yeah, right. Or, I mean, even if it did happen, it's just like, oh yeah, I'm sure you brought it up because you're so hurt.
Yeah, it didn't happen though.
And the way she closes that was funny too. We don't have a lot of women mass shooters, so it's hard to flip the script. But maybe in the future, whenever a white man is falsely accused of rape or murder, white men should fan the airwaves to talk about how damn sexy they are. Until then, I'm begging you, please, for the love of God, stop turning liberal women into C's. It's true. It's only liberal women that ever Because if this were true across the board, you'd see an equal number of conservative women all talking about, oh yeah, I also get all of these comments.
Yep.
Those liberal Asian women, and that's what we learn when Asian women are murdered, that they're survived by just distraught but also smoking hot Asian women.
From what I've heard, second-generation Asians are some of the most woke people. Second-generation Asian women, especially Koreans, seem to be overrepresented among woke activism.
Well, you know who
Whereas,
the poster child for that phenomenon is.
Do I?
Sui Park. I guess she's old news at this point, but
Well, it's news to me, so you can mention it if you want.
hey, Jay Willie, welcome to the stream.
Thank you.
That reminds me, I'm keeping timestamps. Oh, I forgot to timestamp when I started reading the Ann Coulter article, but that's okay.
Oh, I told her.
Okay, so I do have these like few other items, which they're quick items, but it's fun because it's in a theme of how teachers are assholes. And I already looked at the the NPR comic, which was pretty funny, which had the one of the teacher and the other teacher crying in the parking lot like bitches.
And that's why I'm gonna put my kids in private school when I have my own.
Yeah, I saw a great meme the other day where somebody pointed out, school is the experiment, which is obvious, and obviously I knew that, but it makes a lot of sense.
I used to really, really, really liked school when I was a kid. Like, a lot. I thought it was like the best thing ever. I'm not kidding. It's really weird, but I did. Actually, I still do really like school.
Yeah, I guess for me it depends on how much you really care about going back home. Because if if school is better than home, then I guess you're fine at school.
Wait, I didn't hear that.
Oh, I guess for most people, like if they say that they didn't like school, then it just means they like being at home better, and vice versa. So I think if someone ever tells you that they loved being in school, they're probably telling you that like it fucking sucked being at home, either because it was like boring or just like genuinely bad.
Yeah, for me it was kind of boring at home because like it was literally like usually only me and my parents. Well, not all the time, but usually, and that was kind of boring.
But yeah, the story I saw was an accusing teacher of harassment. Oh, I guess it's like worded weirdly because it's Indian Express. But I guess the story is that this teacher accused a student of harassment and like bullied him into suicide. That's basically the headline.
Why didn't you shift school?
Yeah, right. Why didn't he just like switch schools? That's a good question.
Yeah, because like if like I remember right when I was a kid, right, and if something was really bad, like would go to that point, then like you would shift school if teachers are bullying you, right, and you don't want to go to that school anymore. Like it's very like it's kind of simple. Like if I when I have my own kids, right, and they go to school and they want to like teach them like gender ideology, then I'm just gonna say, oh, you're gonna shift school now because I say so, right? Because I don't want them to experience that. Like if something is bad in school, and you as a parent can see it's bad, then you can say, oh, I want my kids to go to the other school.
Well, yeah, I mean, the issue though is, obviously he was a minor, and he was like near the end of high school, right? So I guess if he was looking at switching schools, it's just like the 1 year, So I can kind of see a lot of reasons why you wouldn't want to bother with that kind of thing.
Yeah, but you wouldn't want to bother with like harassing teachers, but you're not going to get a grade.
Well, okay, wait. So yeah, let me see here. Accusing teacher of harassment, because I think that the teacher was accusing him of harassment over and over again too.
Yes, I know, but that is the harassment. That's my point.
Right, but I'm not. Yeah, let's just see. Also, there's someone's mic is picking up a lot of. Let's see, whose is it? I think it's yours, Jay Willie.
It's Jay Willis.
Yeah. You gotta put it somewhere. You gotta set it somewhere not moving or something.
No, I fixed it with my microphone.
Okay.
So
I haven't
did
fixed
you,
my microphone
Derek,
ever.
Have you so did you read anything about Robin Hansen's proposed resolution to the Fermi paradox?
No, I didn't look at that yet. But I should.
Okay.
Let's see. Yeah, so I guess this last part, they said the accused remained in contact with the boy and kept visiting his house and even met him on the day of the suicide. So it's like, yeah, that seems like a pretty what's the word I'm looking for?
Was it like
An aggressive
was it
attempt
like
to
an
get someone to kill themselves, like not just like a cyberbullying. Like that's meat space bullying.
By the
So-
way, Derek, apparently David Shitrat has come back to YouTube and he made a video responding to Karen Strawn like a few months ago in November.
Oh my god, no.
No, I
No, not
remember.
him.
I remember that video. I don't remember it being very good. I'm trying to remember what
You
the
don't
gist of
say.
it was.
Yeah, it was him responding to Karen Strawn responding to ContraPoints, and the title of the video is "Your Name is Karen." So like, I don't know.
I'm sorry, but I have to give credit where credit is due. That is actually kind of fun.
He was trying to get some kind of mileage out of the Karen meme, which is honestly just a bit tedious. But
I mean, like,
I don't know.
if you're gonna respond to someone, right? The mean stuff are like more jokes that you spice the video with to make it funny. It's not like the point you're gonna make, and if that's the only thing you got, then you only have a joke. It was actually kind of funny because I remember that both him and Kraut back in the day, they actually said that about people like Edgy Swings, that you only stand for a joke, so you don't stand for anything. And now it's just like how he's doing it himself this time. But people who know history about how people have acted in the past on the internet, it's kind of funny to see how they like very often like contradict themselves.
Yeah.
I just feel like once a video is a response to something that was originally ContraPoints, just like the the chances of us like really wringing something clear, so something clear and useful out of that is well, it's certainly approaching zero.
But you managed to do something clear and useful out of a response to response that was originally back.
No. I made a response to ContraPoints. But if someone responds to my response, that shit's gonna be way too convoluted, even if it's me. Well, especially if it's,
Here's how, that's what I'm talking about the video where Blair was responding to ContraPoints, and then not response to what happened to ContraPoints, and then the other woman in the corresponded to Blair, and then you responded to that video.
I
That's
don't
what I'm
remember.
talking
It's
about.
way too convoluted.
Yeah, but it was like, you literally said in the video that he was responding to Blair's response to ContraPoints, and you're responding to all of that, and then you make it like a really good video. Out of
Oh
it.
wait, what? Yeah, who's? I'm trying to remember which one was that.
It was like she basically ended it with saying like, "Don't subscribe to my channel, eat shit," and then you subscribed and like her video.
Oh no, I think that was the yeah, that was the buzzed head girl, and she left a very she's pansexual. Oh no, she was not. I thought she was very clear about being not pansexual. It's very
Because
easy
you
to confuse
literally
those
said
two.
That because she don't date trans people, she's just bisexual. And if you date trans people, you are pansexual.
Yeah, and that's actually
like
the
you
first time
basically-
I've heard someone explain a definition of pansexual that's literally just that and is that simple. Every other time they
you
they
actually
couldn't
said
just state that, and it's like, oh yeah, that is what they've been meaning to say this whole fucking time.
Yeah,
it's just
but I think
ridiculous.
The reason why she said that is because she's bisexual and she's just because she doesn't date trans people, what pansexual people do. But most of pansexual people, they basically think that people who don't date trans people are like bigoted, so they basically don't want to justify bisexuality.
But yeah, maybe I'll take a peek of that David Sherratt video just to refresh my memory, because I just remember it being I don't know, it seemed like it was a lot of back and forth with stuff that in the larger point wasn't really relevant, but I guess I'd have to rewatch it. That's just the lasting impression I have. I could be mistaken.
I mean, responding to ContraPoints is difficult enough and just seems pointless because, I mean, it was an interesting video and all that, Karen's, but it's like that just so little of what ContraPoints says is cogent that it's like difficult to extract anything meaningful from it.
Yeah, what you have to do is
I managed to find a ContraPoints video that I wanted to respond to because I could extract something meaningful out of it, but like, I mean, like, to be honest, I'm gonna give credit where credit is due, because ContraPoints, he basically said that the idea of a Judeo-Christian West is mainly used by neocon, like conservative pundits rather than by actual historians. And I mean, like, that's actually kind of good if somebody managed to bring that to the table. It's kind of like a very good point.
Oh yeah, that's a good point for sure. I mean, but yeah, it is kind of like
it's right for all the wrong reasons. I mean, like the reason neocons use the term Judeo-Christian to describe Western history is because the great majority of them are Jews, or like the mainstream of the neoconservative movement in the US, obviously, like sort of the pioneers of it at any rate, you know, they were Jews. So they have to like sort of smuggle in all of these commitments about Judaism and Holocaust worship and all that sort of stuff into Western history. And that's why a lot of people on the right, I guess further to the right, took exception to the term. They would say that it's just, I don't know, Christian history is the history of the West, or like if you go back far enough, I guess pagan as well. But I don't know, ContraPoints, I don't know what her take on it was specifically.
Well, but her take was basically the takes I think all of us would have, because it was kind of like broad. So it was basically just a term that isn't like accurate when it comes to referring to history. It's more of a political term used by conservative for like a certain agenda, which is like true.
Yeah. Well, it's stupid, because this whole idea that the basic tenets of American law are coming from the 10 Commandments, which is what these like BoomerCon, you know, types are always trying to imply. Like you just take any version of the 10 Commandments, right? There's like 5 of them, and just go one by one and see which ones are somehow enshrined into the law, right? Like, thou shalt have no God before me. It's like, okay, well that's explicitly not in there. The opposite of that one is in there. Like, well, I suppose the opposite would be mandating polytheism, right? But you know what I mean? That's so that nope, that one's like, there will never be a law that ever says that has to be something that you're required to do. Okay, so then what's it? Don't bear false witness. Bearing false witness kind of made it, right? Like, that's okay. Not stealing and not murdering, those two made it. Honoring your parents, not really. You could make a very convoluted argument about I suppose like age of consent laws, that you become an adult right at 18, that you can drive at 21, that you can't drink until 21, like whatever those age-based limits are. You could argue that's the third commandment, maybe. Is that the third one in one of the things? I forget how they're numbered, because the number has changed. Coveting is fine. There's no issue with that, right? So as you look at the 10 commands, it's like, you know, 60-70% of them aren't even in any way enshrined of law, and most of that are things that, you know, a basic quote-unquote originalist, which just means literate reading of the document, states that most of this is stuff you could never legislate even. So I don't get the Judeo-Christian thing. Like it's fundamentally stupid.
Yeah, and that was sort of like her points. I guess that's why.
Yeah, and honestly, those arguments. The first time I ever heard that kind of argument made was just Sam Harris. Although it is kind of just, you know, it's really standing there in plain sight for anyone to make the argument. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the reason why I like it was because so rarely people actually do make the argument when it's so easy to do. So whenever somebody does, then like, it's nice to see if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. And the thing with going through ContraPoint stuff is you have to watch it at a very fast pace and then essentially just wait for them to recap, because that's when they're going to state things that are actually like propositions toward a conclusion. Otherwise, you have like so many just like little like theatrical things, and then like the music she puts under it makes it um, like really like hard to concentrate. And then the switching of characters can be helpful, right? Because switching voices to, in theory, like have different like perspectives, like very clearly marked in that way, right? There are some indicators that are helpful, but you end up with kind of very little meat to really respond to.
Yeah,
So you
that's true, but
definitely
that's why you
don't go
can.
minute by minute responding to it, because it's just a big waste of time.
Yeah, like I also respond because it might be kind of funny, because like I'm like the reason why was the video about the West, which I actually kind of agreed with, because, and that was the video when she said about Judeo-Christian being a stupid thing too, right? And the reason why I agree with that is because we kind of like find ourselves in a very strange bad self with people who don't like the concepts of like the West, because the West have literally put like the. Actually, it was one of your videos that convinced me about the West is very like useless, because the idea of like putting what is against discrimination as the center of what is considered virtuous, right? And I think that's like so fucking stupid that the West is this way. And I really liked this your video like called that out. It was the one about Jenny, if I remember.
Oh yeah, no, I made a couple of them, because yeah. But yeah, no, that was actually kind of a clickbait attempt, right? Because that video is unironically, like I'm arguing, Jessica Yaniv is doing a good thing, right? But of course, the way it ended up working out is they'll discriminate in Jessica Yaniv's case because it's just completely outrageous. And of course, Yaniv is a biological male. So yeah, so that, but whereas if we look at like little girls transitioning to boys or whatever, every single consideration on both sides, right, is just like this arms race. Whereas with Yaniv, it's like, oh, no, we'll just let the double standard stand here because this person's a freak and a weirdo and no one's going to complain. And that's, that assessment is accurate. And we just add it to
Honestly
our list of,
speaking,
yeah.
you very rarely hear about women who want to be men or women who become trans men, because men don't care about it. So
yeah, I was actually very interesting part about that I actually wanted to respond to the idea whenever like the turfs debate about, oh, these people who transition into being women, they don't know how it really likes to be women, right, and all that. And I was actually kind of, okay, oh, I guess I get it. But wait a second. That actually kind of works the other way around, because a lot of trans women, right, that I've talked to or interacted with or like watched, right, they are in many ways relatable in the sense that they actually know like a lot of bad things about growing up like as a male. While a lot of the transgender males, that they are like, a lot of them, they basically like are, because they basically transition and think that everything is so amazing now, right? They basically like act like assholes, like pretend like men, regular men, have it so good, right? Because they didn't have to deal with the whole reality about that if you were raped, you couldn't like sue a female rapist, or that that you are just called your entire childhood you were like the scum of the earth, because they weren't called that on a many of their entire childhood. And then they act as though their euphoric experience about being a male as an adult, when they have had before and doesn't have any more, to be the universal standard for men to hold up, and then call all other men that call like a whiner. So the turf standards that say, oh, but these people don't know what it's like to be a woman, right? That actually makes more sense in the other way. Like, you're just gonna throw it out there, and I'm actually gonna make a video about it.
It's just like, it's practically mandatory on every one of my streams that we mention that anti-discrimination is like, it's just, not only is it just such a logically like idiotic thing, right? But then, to have freedom of association just through basic negative liberty and basic property rights, it solves like so many problems that people always scratch their heads over for no reason.
Yes, exactly. Like the reason why people don't think this, they're like, oh, but if you have anti-discrimination law, that means that that people are gonna starve because nobody would want to like to give them money. I'm like, wait, and then a lot of people, a lot of stupid libertarians, they basically say, yeah, I guess that would happen. I'm like, no, it fucking wouldn't. If you basically remove all, like, if you have anarcho-capitalism tomorrow, right? The amount of people who will be starving because nobody will want to care for them wouldn't really exist, because you would have because most people, if they see people who, they're like, oh, we need to have government because if people are like, are like tetraplegia and they can't work and they have no relatives, then who's gonna make sure that they can live, right? Because they can't support themselves. I'm like, what these people are saying, they're basically saying that no one in society would want to help them freely if the government didn't tell them to. I'm like, and then other people who identify as libertarian, right? They basically, yeah, I guess that's something that could happen. I'm like, no, it fucking wouldn't happen. That's so fucking dumb. Like, that's so fucking weird. Like, who would want to let people starve if you could help them? And if we had truly capitalism, people would be able to help people in that situation, right? Without like giving cost to their own like well-being.
Well, and that's why I love the way that Dr. Mary Ruwart puts it, right? When their organization goes through and says, here's the number of people we can estimate are dead because of your regulations, because of FDA approvals, you know, because of that requirement for all of these drugs, which we know work and are being used all over the place in other Western countries, right? We have like these, like, this like uniquely American chunk of deaths that's literally just the government's fault. And like, people just don't often enough put it in those terms. Like, when you advocate for a minimum wage, you are starving people to death, right? When you say, when you have child labor laws, you are starving people to death. And I think that people who support those kinds of policies, like, those are the terms, you know, that they need to own it in. Whereas like libertarians are just, they're way too nice, or they're always trying to be all carrot. And I wish that there'd be just a little bit more condemnation.
No, I'm condemning. I'm basically
a little bit more fire and brimstone.
No, I'm actually gonna make the case. I have like the best case against statism or against leftism. Everyone who's like an alt-right or traditionalist, all of them have to agree with this statement is correct. You want to hear it?
What is it?
That is that if you, for example, have a lot of people in society, and if you have like a welfare state or any form of like welfare distribution, that means that some races are going to pay into it more than others. So that means it's genocide, because they're going to have less kids than would otherwise afford.
Wait, sorry, that was fast. You said some, what?
Because people who are net contributors to a system, like to a state system that we have today, or people who are on aggregate contributing more than they're taking in, that it have a negative effect on that group, the demographics, overall fertility, and reducing fertility about a certain group of people knowingly, right? And if you have the data, you are knowing that you're doing it, that is genocide.
Yeah, but then they just argue that the government right now is libertarian. That's literally the argument. They say no. That's the argument. That's the anti-libertarian argument from like the alt-right or like TradCon perspective, is that a bunch of Jews named Ayn Rand and Rothbard and Mises or whatever, they indoctrinated a subset of white people into embracing liberalism in the form of libertarianism, and libertarians are secretly pulling all the strings and causing everything to happen, and it's libertarians who always get their way and are to blame for everything. And that's what like a distributist will tell you, because like it's so, yeah, it's just so full of fucking cope, and they're so desperate for someone to blame, anyone but themselves to blame, that they'll literally try to pretend like literally the libertarian question.
I didn't think the distributist were interested in JQ stuff. That really doesn't seem to be his thing. Like, has he actually said that?
No, I don't mean the. So I tried something different with the audio, and I think I remember that one not quite coming out as clear as others. Someday I'll reach that summit, or at least a more respectable plateau that I won't fall back down from.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, wait, there was something I wanted to say before. Well, I wanted to say something about the article you talked about earlier. And I said that article is like, they say, oh, it's a good intention. No, it's not a good intention. To like hold people accountable for something they didn't do isn't good intention, like, period. That's fucking dumb. Like,
it means so little. I know. It's, yeah. Well, it means so little, particularly when it's so easy to anticipate all of the bad intentions and they're being warned about them.
Yeah, that's true. Like, God, I lost my train of thought. I was trying to say something amazing. And I forgot what it wanted to say.
I'm looking at these comments for this one here, but it's all... See, when the teacher tore up the student's paper, what was the lesson? How is that teaching kids? Ripping the... They tore up the paper? Oh my god.
Wait, toothpaper.
Wait.
Sorry. I don't understand. Toothpaper was...
Yeah, oh my god. I didn't see this part of the story. On February 25th, he was in school and finished a reading assignment early. He decided to get started on other work, but was berated by a teacher for taking out different worksheets during class, Paul said, adding that the teacher ripped up the papers on his desk. Yeah, those are our brave teachers.
Stunning and brave.
Very stunning. Stunning? They got the stunning part for sure, right?
Have you guys also realized that the people who do the least amount of work and are the most obnoxious people, they're the one who always want to be called stunning and brave by literally everyone else? I've also realized that.
Well, it's an old point that's made is that whenever you demand like a title or demand that people call you something or whatever, you're admitting that you're not, you know, and you need a rule to have the thing. It's just an admission that you don't have the real thing. Hey, I guess that principle ties into fusionism very well. You know, they want to mandate tradition by its rules, right? Instead of having it exist organically. And it's an admission that, you know, they don't really have those values.
That is absolutely correct. 100% correct.
Yeah. Like, and then honestly, I apply it to the 10 Commandments a lot, right? If the rule is like honor your father and mother, it's like the only parents that benefit from that are the ones that should not be honored.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, and here's like that's the reason why defooing is like definitely fusion is our favorite defooing, right?
Yeah. That was the first time, yeah, like that was probably the first major version of like cancel culture, right, that I had seen, was people trying to cancel Molyneux over that. And you looked into it and it's like, wait, so everybody's saying that if your family members are abusive, you have to maintain a relationship with them? Because if they're taking an issue, I don't know why they think that way. I don't get it.
Because the reason why is because the family abused them into thinking that they need them. Like, abusive makes the victims think they deserve it, right? And that is why all these people prove that defooing is justified by defending abusive family members.
Oh, yeah.
Because, like, the fact that people, like the whole idea that you should, like, be more, that you, like, are owed, like, that not, that your parents doesn't, or your family doesn't do anything to you for making sure you exist, right? They just make you, then just let you suffer, right? But you owe something to them because they made you live, even if they treat you like shit for like 18 years. Like, that's the only thing you need to accept that to be a thing if you think defooing is wrong. But we aren't that stupid.
Yeah, and it's one of those things too where I guess I could never really appreciate why people would get so outraged over it. So it never seemed convincing. It seemed like there was always an ulterior motive, and I think that's pretty much always the case with this cancel culture shit.
No, but you see a lot of people who are against it. They're against it because they think that they wouldn't be good parents or good family members. So if people could defoo, nobody would want anything to do with them. So they basically get outside. How dare these people not want me to get unjustified credibility for being a bad person, just for, you know what I'm saying?
I mean, that does seem to be the admission. Yeah.
And you see that people get outraged over things that aren't outrageous. The reason why is because they themselves would be bad in that situation, usually.
Right. All right. So as far as the stream, I did remember to record it on my end, and it seems like I got a solid couple of hours of it recording, which means that I should be able to just re-upload a version of this that won't have like interruptions or anything. But the problem is that I noticed that the recording itself stopped and started. I don't know if there's a limit to the video size, and then I have to remember to click it again. So it does appear that even with my recording of it, a chunk of it's missing. But I guess in theory, I can download the stream and then I could kind of hobble something together, which is, it makes me happy that I can at least have a complete stream uploaded. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and end the stream because what's just gonna happen is it'll connect for a tiny bit. We'll have a couple of people get in here, and then within a couple of minutes, it's just gonna fuck up again. I changed a lot of the settings, and it seems to be a little better, so I might just try and change them again further in that direction and see if it makes a better difference. But it is kind of just a guessing game, so that's where that's at. But yeah, on that note, I'm ending the stream now, so if you wanted to note anything before I officially click that.
Yeah, I can note something. Is that the reason why all fusionists will be in favor of the idea of defuring is that if you want to be a traditional parent that is a good parent, right, then your children would want to associate with you when they're older, and they would be good enough doing that wouldn't compromise their own well-being, right? And in a traditionalist libertarian society, that would be the case, right? So the only parents who are against defuring are those who want entitlement. They want to get the reward of being a good parent without putting in the work of being a good parent. And that's the reason why they don't like defuring, because they know that I can be a bad, because the idea of them being bad parents means that they're going to be reprimanded for that somehow. That's something they don't like.
That actually reminds me of a concept I had the other day, which is that, well, what you just described, but also you could argue a lot of single parent situations. It's essentially getting a child on credit, right? Like you're supposed to kind of upfront have, the basics, set up, right? Such that you can, sustain and support that kind of lifestyle, right? But of course, you have the situation where so many people don't have that, right? So they have the kid, because the mechanics of the kid existing. So they bought the kid on credit.
Yeah, and then they basically say, you people who don't have kids yet, you need to give me money so that I can raise my kid irresponsibly of you, right? And you just have to not have kids for a lot of year or so. So therefore, you're going to be older parents because of the government, right? And therefore, those people would probably not be as good parents as they would otherwise be able to be. And that is how the government destroys families. They literally rewards the worst type of parents, which is usually those who don't think before. Because if you don't have the fucking government welfare system, you would think before. And that's the reason why degeneracy is fundamentally government. And that's why you can't divide social issues and economic issues, right? First of all, that's just communist propaganda. But second of all, like, to pretend that you can have that if you have economic leftism, you can have those things happen, those bad things happening, right? But if you have capitalism, those things cannot really happen. Those things those things aren't encouraged, right? Which means it's not going to occur as much, right? And if you want to be traditionalist, then you have to accept that.
Well, and that opportunity cost that's lost, that's not just like a good thing that could have happened. I mean, it is literally that, but it's something that's taken from us. So I think that people should be putting it in those terms too.
Yeah, that's
just something I want to add.
And that's also the whole idea of Christians not being traditionalists but not fusionists. That's really weird, because isn't like theft a sin?
Oh, but maybe it's a turn the other cheek manifestation. Maybe that's part of it.
Yeah, but they're not turning their cheeks; they're turning other people's cheeks by force.
Yeah. Yeah, one step removed, so they support that. It's true.
Oh, yeah, but that's true. They use Pascal Vedic Christians, I suppose. Doesn't really actually seem to be very convinced in what they believe. Only use it to it comes secondary to government beliefs in that regard.
Okay, but I was just looking for like 1 minute things just to kind of round out the stream. So, Ashley, any closing thoughts?
No, that's gonna be my closing thoughts.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add.
All right. Well, let's see. Yeah, so I'll schedule the next one whenever I want to. If I'm gonna stick to the 2 weeks on, 1 week off, then I would not have one next week. So I might try doing one on Saturday or something instead, just because I think some people expressed interest in doing it at a different time. As did Jen, and I think it would be fun to have that stream, even though it might be quite confusing. Might be a little bit of a headache, a little bit labyrinthine, but I think that's all the more reason to kind of see.
Oh, now I know the 1 minute close up. If you haven't closed the stream already.
No, go ahead.
That is that the that while this teachers being bad, right? That's why I always put it on like the private, right? If you put your kids in a school that is bad, then you should have done a better choice. If your kids get taught this bullshit or treated badly in school, then one should have made a better choice, and that's an argument for school choice, and why parents should not put responsibility on the school. They should also take responsibility themselves. Even when something, like if something bad happened to you and you realize it's not your fault, right? You should still take responsibility as though it was. Otherwise, you're just going to suffer more.
Well, and I think that's why men are so often always the bigger man, right? But you're right. There's a lot of utility in that. And because then you're not putting the power on other people, to make the right decision. I will note, though, we had a lot of private schools that were in the stories we had today. So
yeah,
some people, no, they're not. Yeah, because some people they're mistaken and they think that a private school is a free market school, and it's not. It's just maybe a step, maybe just half a step away from the same crap that you get in public schools. So
yeah, but like if we had a free market, then these things would. Like that school in like Victoria, they would like people would like leave it and they would go bankrupt.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and the colleges would be toast too. It'd be great.
That'd be so beautiful.
It's nice to dream.
That's why having the economic high ground is having the moral high ground.
Yeah, and it's great that people are openly talking about just firing all the teachers and closing down all the schools in the wake of beer virus. So. We'll cross our fingers